Hello, my most amazing artists. How are you today? Ready to create? Today, we are going to create drawings in the style of Japanese animation. If we are going to start drawing in the style of anime, then we have to know just a little bit of a background. Trust me, it'll help a lot. Before Japanese anime, there was manga. In order to learn about the history of anime, we must first talk about manga. You may or may not be familiar with manga. We're going to pause the video and discuss what is manga. Manga is the Japanese word for comic books. Before the moving cartoons of anime, there only existed comics. The comic books are much different in Japan than here in America. For one thing, they are a lot thicker, but also smaller. For another, there are way more of them. If you go into a Japanese bookstore, more than half of it will probably contain manga comic books. People of all ages read manga. There were, and still are, comics for young children, manga adults, boys, girls. You name a special group, and you probably could find manga just for it. Another way that manga is very different is the fact that Japanese people read manga from the top to bottom and right to left, like this. So that's how they organize their comic books too. Sometimes when they translate the comic books to English, they reorganize them to make sense for English readers, but sometimes they don't. To learn the origin or the very beginnings of manga, we have to go all the way back to the 11th century when artists were painting on scrolls. One artist, actually artist and priest, named Toba Sojo, started drawing cartoons using animals, and apparently these crazy little animals were representing priests. Pretty funny. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of other cartoons being created, but this artist's style really stood out since he had such a great sense of humor. For the sake of time, let's fast forward again to the 19th century and the awesome work of Hokusai. Yeah, you might recognize some of his art, such as this one. This artwork is titled The Great Wave. It is an artwork depicting a towering tidal wave right before it crashes down on the fishermen below. Do you think Hokusai thought the sea was big and beautiful or dangerous? Whatever your opinion of this artwork, this is a great example of a dramatic freeze frame. Dramatic freeze frames are very typical in Japanese art and Japanese anime. Hokusai's Great Wave is a very famous and popular artwork. It's one of the most parodied or recreated paintings of all time. You might have seen the Great Wave before, but what you probably have never seen are Hokusai's sketches. Take a look. He also had a great sense of humor and really tried to capture different facial expressions. Of course, if you know anything about manga today, facial expressions are incredibly important. You sure can learn a lot from an artist's sketchbook, can't you? Hokusai was also the first artist to use the term manga, which, by the way, means playful sketches. I don't know about you, but it fits really well with these loose, brush-like strokes you often see in manga. Do you see the influences Hokusai and Toba Sojo have on modern manga and anime? Let's pause the video and discuss. What features do you see in Hokusai's or Sojo's work that you still see in modern manga or anime today? Let's fast forward once again to after World War II in 1947. The Second World War was a disaster for the Japanese people. They were on the losing side of the war, and their country was left with much destruction in the aftermath. After the war, they were trying to rebuild their confidence as a nation. For many people, manga was a way to provide the citizens with much needed relief, and manga was also a way to restore their culture. Furthermore, after the war, the Japanese constitution was signed, which prohibited all forms of censorship. As you might imagine, all of this meant a huge growth in the art community with this newfound freedom of expression. One of the most influential artists to rise up during this time was Tezuka Osamu. Let me put it this way. He was like the godfather of manga, or better yet, like the Walt Disney of Japanese animation. Seriously, millions and millions still love his work even today. Tezuka created a character called Mighty Atom, or Astro Boy, which was wildly popular. You really start to see more of the classic manga characteristics developing in his work, right? What Tezuka did was genius. It was during this time that movies from France, Germany, and the US were finally being played in Japan. Tezuka, who watched these movies, loved the way they were filmed. So he took the same ideas in movie making and applied them to his drawings. All of a sudden, everything moved from flat 2D images to these dynamic, realistic perspectives, focusing on expression and emotion. He also created his cartoons so that they read like a movie, scene by scene. He was so successful that he completed over 700 volumes with more than 150,000 sketches. Man, talk about a hard worker. Tezuka Osamu was an extremely hard worker, but men were not the only ones to make an impact on the world of anime and manga. There is one more artist that I have to mention. That artist's name is Michiko Hasegawa, a female artist who created an amazing manga character. She knew after the war women needed a model for strength, experience, determination, someone who could show what everyday life was like, and that's exactly what she did. Hasegawa's manga sold over 62 million copies over 50 years. It's because of these two amazing artists that two different styles began to emerge. One is called shoujo, which represents female strength, determination, and leadership, and focus on daily life. The other category is shonen, which is aimed at males, such as the Astro Boy series. Now that we have a basic background on manga and anime, let's start creating.